warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you everyone for coming, and we spent a while right now, yesterday and today, and it seems this is a very fruitful discussion and we have very valuable information. Now, having us as information security experts here, we want to really share our thoughts in this very interesting topic, which is risk management and business continuity. So before I start, I'd like to welcome our respective speakers. We have Dr. Hussam Ruwaihi, Director of Information Technology at King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals. Welcome, Dr. Hussam. And we have Greg Novak. He's the Principal Research Analyst at Information Security Forum. And we have Engineer Yasser Ruhaili, Head of Information Security Risk Management at Saudi Telecom Company. Welcome them, please. So, to give a brief about our topic, it's going to be basically, the output of what we gain in these 2 days. So it's the risk management and the business continuity. So if we implement as security officers a very accurate, comprehensive risk management, we will be ensuring that our corporate reputation is maintained. We will avoid legal implications and eliminate financial loss, and finally increase our productivity. And as well, when it comes to the business continuity, now experts would say that if the risk could happen, then it will happen. And when it happens, it will happen in the worst case scenario. So we will, from this session, we will inshallah be able to understand what information needs to be protected, and forecasting the consequences of the attack, risk analysis, and mitigation. We will be able to understand the restoring operations through an effective business continuity planning, and finally ensuring that company assets and image are not affected. So I'd like to really start with a question to Dr. Hussam, that how do you relate risk management and business continuity, having you in a very interesting position as a Director of Information Technology, because we rarely see that information technology managers or CIOs support so much information security. So please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu ala Rasulullah. The way I would first say that risk management and business continuity are very critical today, as we've seen. And as also Fahad mentioned, if there is a risk, someone will use it against us, and security would be breached in a day. And as also seen in the previous session, it might be breached by our own people, not intentionally, but because of phishing attacks and some kind of social engineering access to our jewels, right? Our data and the information assets that we have. Historically, risk management has been there before, right? Businesses, they were traditional and they were looking at risk management. However, now as businesses became more dependent on IT, this concept of business continuity and how IT will play a role became important. Many people will argue that business continuity is part of risk management. And this is maybe the traditional way of thinking. However, if we do this and you put the business continuity under the risk management umbrella, what will happen is that people will not think of business continuity as what it is really, or what it really is, but rather they will think of disaster recovery. They would think of things like what will happen if our data center goes down, and what are our disaster recovery methods. And definitely as security professionals and specialists, we don't want this to happen. We don't want the business to look at business continuity as only disaster recovery, because then it will be the IT's problem, right? Something happens, it's IT's problem, they need to resolve it. I think that business continuity and disaster recovery sit side by side. There are two risks to a business. Will undervalue this very important aspect of the business.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Sam. Now, by understanding the risk management and the business continuity, how could the IT security professionals really educate senior management to have a risk management culture or methodology?
So hello, everyone. I'm Gregory Novak from the Information Security Forum. For those of you who don't know us, we're a not-for-profit cooperative of organizations, public and private sector, devoted to information security strategy, tools, and methodologies. We have some of our papers on the entry desk if you want to pick them up. So in my few minutes here, I'd like to make 3 controversial statements, at least 3, maybe more. You can help keep count. First controversial statement. What is the job of information security function? It's not to manage risk. If our job is not to manage risk, what is it? It's to analyze risk. Senior management, business owners, those people who are responsible for profit and loss, it is their job to manage risk. We analyze risk. Our responsibility is to present a complete and accurate picture of the risk landscape. We need senior management's help at the beginning and end of this process. Risk analysis involves objects at 3 levels: risks, threats, and vulnerabilities. Very briefly, a risk is any negative outcome for the business, an unplanned negative outcome. A threat, any use case or event that brings about that outcome. A vulnerability, any feature of a system, technical, human, workflow that allows that threat to happen. So risk, threat, vulnerability, the why, the how, and the what. So, second controversial statement. We're talking too much about advanced persistent threats and 0 days to senior management, and they're asking us too much about them. Advanced persistent threat, it's a scary term, but it basically means a bad thing. What if a bad thing happens to our business? It is not qualified enough, it's not specific, it's a journalist term, it's not an analyst term. If senior management asks an information security professional, what about advanced persistent threats? The answer should be, let's not talk about that, your time is too valuable, Tell me about your business. I need to understand that so I can help you. The information security forum approach to risk analysis involves several steps. First of all, always first, business impact. What is the impact of the business? Then we get that from senior management. Then we look among ourselves at threats and vulnerabilities. Then we go back to the business to talk about risk treatment. And business continuity planning is fundamentally a risk treatment initiative. As Dr. Hassam rightly pointed out, it's not just disaster recovery, it is risk treatment. The business not continuing is a risk. It needs to be treated. But the decision as to which treatment option to follow rests with the business. So this brings me to my third controversial statement. In our outline, we were supposed to talk about what information needs protecting, what are the crown jewels, and how do we handle them? My answer is, I don't know. Senior management should tell me this. What is important to you? Most intelligent question to ask senior management is, how much would it cost for you to be deprived of this asset? How much would it cost if this asset was made public? You tell me that, and I will tell you what your risk treatment options are that are appropriate to that business impact. If you don't know how much it costs to be down, how much it costs to be without an asset, you have no idea what the appropriate risk treatment is, how much to spend on business continuity. We don't do business continuity for fun. We do it to manage risk. It's the cost of being without an asset is an operational management question. The business should be able to tell you that, and you can respond with risk treatment when there's an information security risk that might bring that risk about. So once you know these questions, you are a partner with the business. You are providing them a complete and accurate picture of the risk landscape and then giving them risk treatment options, and they make the management decision to choose among them what's the appropriate business continuity plan to have.
Engineer Yasser, you're having a tough job, honestly. Okay, you're the head of information security risk management in the largest telecom operator. So how would you really measure the effectiveness of risk management, of the risk management you do?
Yeah. As you mentioned, having a risk management program without calculating the effectiveness of that program, it will be put the whole program under a doubt, and anyone will ask you about your results if you are not showing them that you are effectively monitoring the effectiveness of the program. Usually for any framework, it will have a very long journey for improvement. And this improvement need an effectiveness way of measuring the status of that program. From what I believe, that for risk management, sometimes it's a good idea to start risk management. Of course, risk management is the first thing that to start with, because we are all working in information security, and we know the main goal is to protect the organization against risks. For that, the first thing that you need to start is the risk management. I am not a fan of waiting till the risk management framework complete, and after that we start with an incident management, for example, or threat and vulnerability management. Always start things with a small, as a start point, because those other points, like incident management, will help you to evaluate your risk management program. For example, if you are telling that one of the main risks in your organization is leaking information, while the majority of incidents that you are facing in your organization is a malicious code or a virus infection, this means that there is something wrong. You are not identifying the right risks in the top of priority. This is one example of that. The second example of if you are implementing vulnerability management at a certain level, you will be able to evaluate also the risk management. And a quick example of that, from myself, I am looking to the vulnerability management as a monitoring control for the risk management. If you are placing the control for certain risk, let's say that unauthorized access, or let's say that malicious code. We know that malicious code is utilizing a vulnerability in operating system for unbatched system and for unbatched system. If you are not running periodical scanning of vulnerability scanners, this means, and you are not seeing is the vulnerability or number of vulnerabilities increase or decrease, this means that you are not able to judge the controls that you are placing, which is, for example, batching the systems in frequent based on the policy. Another way to measure the effectiveness is the KRIs that you are defining in your risks. Taking, let's say that it is having the same trend like an incident. This is also another sign that whether are you doing well in your program or not. KPI of the controls is very good point to consider.
Thank you. So let's be very transparent here, okay? No one likes information security. As business departments, okay? When they see us as information security officers, up to some point they get panic because we're either enforcing some policies on them or we're just doing audits and finding some problems about them. So people don't like to be controlled. So we need to work all time smart. We need to work smart and not work hard. So a risk management should be properly conducted based on the business need. We are saying here keywords, business need. And it's honestly, it should be should start with the executive management and based on our strategy. And we need to, okay, I've heard lots of words, which is the threat, the vulnerability, but we also need to focus on the likelihood. And this is a very important aspect. Because why do we really need to spend some effort and money and time on some threats that are not actually going to happen? For example, if we're going to say that, oh, our database is going to be leaked, and because it's not, and we need an encryption solution on it, okay, this seems good, but the encryption will cost us money and time and effort, and at the end, maybe this is not the risk that's going to happen. Maybe we have more cases, which is like sharing passwords. So you could just apply compensating controls here, and then you could focus on the high risks. So up to some point, there are risks that could be accepted. And this is what us as information security officers, we need to focus on. Because we always request budgets, we request tools. And if we spend time, like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and so on, and the risk does not happen, then they will say, wow, you were wrong. So we need to be careful on this. And then we need to educate them actually about that information security is not against success at all. Information security is not against business. Dr. Hussam, Nawak, and Yasser, they always mention business. We're supporting the business. We do not prevent at all. What we do is that we make the projects or roles and responsibilities go safe and secure. For example, if we would ask ourselves, what really makes the car go fast? What makes the car go fast is not actually, or what makes the car, or what's the most affected element that makes the car go fast? It's not the driver, it's not the machine, it's not the wheels, it's actually the brakes. Because if you don't have any brakes on your car, you're not going to be able to go fast. So this is us as information security officers. We're going to be the brakes. We're going to put some safety belts on you. We're going to put some airbags and brakes to make sure that you go safe and secure. So, Hussam, now, universities and healthcare or hospitals are the most difficult places to protect because everyone can visit them and you need really to share some data, either educational. So what do you do actually to protect the brand image of the university?
Thank you, Fahad, for the interesting question. I think just to add to what Fahad says, you can go fast, but once. Because you cannot brake and no one's going to happen. another analogy people put for security is that the IT world is the highway. Information security are the traffic signs, and so yeah, you can go very fast on the highway with no traffic signs. What will happen? Accidents. And I agree with you, Fahad, because the universities are actually, and maybe healthcare as well, they're a challenging environment. And I think especially maybe more in universities where we need to be very open to support the education process, to support our students and faculty, staff. They like to try new things. And I think universities were the first places where this BYOD thing happened, right? Because in universities, everybody comes with their own device since the beginning of IT. So it's a challenge for us actually to maintain security and because also at the same time, we have a big internal risk. Our students, they're smart, they're young, they like to play with things and they try to experiment. And sometimes they experiment with our IT, right? So this internal risk is always there. But coming back to the question of protecting the brand and the image, since today everything is dependent on IT and IT is enabling different aspects of the business, any breach to the any of the systems that you have might impact your image, especially if you're a service provider, let's say, and your service is stopped due to a denial of service attack or some system was hacked and you cannot provide the service, then definitely this will impact your image, as well as leaking data and the data that could be embarrassing to the organization or could be users' data that we don't want also to leak. So to protect your brand and image in today's world, you can do a lot, but at the end you will not be able to 100% do this unless you're prepared. So first we need to identify what are the publicly accessible services, because these are the ones that we need to make sure that they're always running. Anything that is running inside, if HR system goes down, I mean, your customers will not have a problem, right? So maybe for you, it's not really impacting your image. Your employees maybe will not be happy, but that's something else. Also, we need to identify, as we also mentioned by Gregory, the crown jewels. What is the important data? And as IT, we don't know. And this is why we need to involve the senior management. They should know. They should tell you that student records, for example, in university, is a very critical and is our crown jewel. The grades of students and all their academic history is our crown jewel. In a hospital, I'm sure maybe patients' data, and this is definitely something that needs to be protected. So we need to involve the business when it comes to protecting the image. It's not the IT's problem only. If the business does not tell you that this is important and something happens to it, how would you know if it's important or not? However, today we are in a very socially connected world, and your image, even if you do the best to protect your image, some people will come and say things about you on Twitter or on Facebook or on the internet. And these kind of things can only be addressed by having a proper public relations team that can address issues like this, especially when people put things that are not based on any facts and accuse your organization of doing things that it has nothing to do with. In this case, we need to have a proper public relations team that will respond to such incidents by making press releases and addressing the concerns of your constituents, your customers, or the public in this case. So these are my few words about this, but maybe the other colleagues can have anything to add.
Nawak, from your perspective, and to be like a lesson learned for us as audience, what are the most common incident management mistakes usually security officers do?
Well, I would say once an incident has happened, the most common mistake is not to have a communication plan that's been communicated in advance. I'd like you all to imagine that in your organizations, right now an incident is happening, you're going to get a phone call in half an hour, and you're going to find out that something is going on. How many of you are sure that every staff member in your organization knows what to do? And I would say one of the most important things for every staff member to know what to do is not to talk to the press, not to talk to anyone who calls them on the phone, but to know who the media contact is in your organization. If someone has a brother who's a journalist and calls them up and says, hey, how's work going? Oh, well, we're having an awful day today. That may appear in a newspaper.
Yeah.
So as part of your security awareness training, make sure that everyone knows that Mr. So-and-so is the media contact, and if something is going on, all press inquiries should be referred to them. Then there's a single point of internal contact where the information can be managed. Because worse than having no story at all in the press is having two conflicting stories from two internal sources, and that would be severe damage to a brand and reputation.
Thank you so much. Engineer Yasser, how can you gain the senior management trust to your risk management outputs?
Yeah, maybe the first point, first of all, this question usually has been asked because of a lot of complaints that senior management or senior managers, they are not taking security seriously. This is a well-known issue of the world. And from my perspective, I do believe that this is somehow is related to the information security officers themselves. If we talk about risks management, we are all dealing with risks, whether we are information security professional or we are or any individual. They are working they are working on risks. For example, yesterday, Dr. Jalal, he mentioned we are teaching our children how to cross the street, to protect them from the risks, for example. Actually, we are teaching them how to do a risk analysis to decide whether to cross the street or not. This is what we are. This is in our DNA, everyone. For that, I do believe that if we are communicating things to the senior management in a proper way, it has its own characteristics of communicating this. Don't expect that if you are not able to defend your risks reports in front of them, you expect them to accept it. You have to, whatever you are reporting, you have to be able to justify it, you have to be defended. And the best stage and the best time that you can evaluate your risk analysis methodology is whenever you are asking for a budget, or maybe sometimes when you are trying to stop in a high-risk project. If you success in that, this means that all your risks output are defendable and justifiable. Another point that I saw a lot of people, they are failing, they are reporting risks without, they are reporting risk in open time. For example, if I ask someone, what is the risk of someone with a very healthy condition that I asked someone yesterday, he said that is, I can consider it as a medium. I said, based on what? He said, this is what has happened, that some people, they are dying, while they are having a healthy condition, and sometimes, they are live till their late age. The problem is, in this question, that we are not limiting the time. Everyone, he will die. If I ask the same question, I will say that, what's the risk of someone he die in 100 years? It will be said that is very high. But if you leave it open like that, it will be very vague. And believe me, senior management, they are business oriented. And anyone in the business, if you came to him telling them that, okay, if you can give me 100,000, I can give you a profit for 50,000. The first question he will say, when? And you are expecting this question from the positive side, then why you are not expecting this from the negative side? Mm-hmm. Always report risks within a time. Tell them that we are under this risk for 6 months because of the following reason, and we are unjustified for the time you are talking about. Also, another point to you can gain the trust of the senior management, utilizing the incident. Whenever you are reporting risks and you are facing an incident, you need to tell them that this is what we have been reported from the beginning. This is we can consider it as a snowball of the risk that we may need now to increase the mitigation control. We change things. We need maybe to raise the bar for controlling that risk. Maybe I can say about another point, which is I hope it's last, is to educate management. You need to scare them. Really. You need to scare them. I am not a fan of sending an awareness to the management or senior management how to use their password or how to use a one-time password. It is good, but it's the most important to them. You need to tell them whenever a case happens and a breach happened otherwise outside your organization, you tell them what is happening there, what was the reason of that breach, what is the control that you are placing, what control is missing in your organization. By this way, you are really educate them. But applying the same education or the same awareness that you are applying for the regular employee, it will not work.
Sounds good, Engineer Yasser. So the idea is that we need to always ensure that we have a proper, accurate risk management. Now, I want to share one of my experiences, actually. I've attended a training course in London a long time ago, and we were divided into 4 or 5 groups. We were all information security officers, and they gave us the same case, and we've done and the same risk management methodology, and we worked as a workshop, and then when we gave the results, each result of each group was different. And the instructor himself said, well, you were right, and you were right, and both of you were right as well. He said, how come? It's the same case, the same risk management methodology, okay, the asset value, the threat, the vulnerability, the likelihood, then you get the risk, but different results. How come you say that every one of us is correct? He responded saying that it depends actually on the business need. So it depends on the senior management. We don't take any risks. Up to some point, we act as legal advisors. So we just raise the flag, say, look, you have a problem here, and this is how you fix it, and this is the impact if you don't. It's up to you if you want to accept the risk or not. Now, we are in a challenging position. Why? Because risk management would require the involvement of executives or decision makers. And senior management executives, they are very, very smart. And they will try always to critique you and validate until they able to reach to the point that you are really accurate. As Yasser said, that you should be able to defend your justifications. And according to my experience, what usually they ask is that, well, okay, you care about our website and you want it to make it safe and secure. Well, our website was running since 5 years ago and nothing happened. And why do you need us to protect it right now? Again, you want us to develop new policies? We don't have policies since 3 years ago. Why do you want it right now? So we always need to really work smart and not work hard. Again, and from those risk management outputs, we need to focus on 3 things. The legal standards, having policies, procedures, following international standards such as the ISO 27001, the HIPAA standard, the PCI DSS, and having technical standards such as the encryption, the passwords, the penetration testing, and so on, and administrative standards, which is increasing the awareness and conducting audits. Why? Because 2 basic rules in information security is that first, we trust and we verify. So don't panic, tell the end user, don't panic when you see us. We're here to support you. So we trust you, but we need to verify from time to time. And I'm taking a long time, but hackers now these days are a lot. And it's easy to become a hacker. Simply, if you want to become a hacker, just go to Google and say how to become a hacker. And you will find lots of reports and documentations that will tell you exactly how to become a hacker. And if you want an easy approach or more easier approach, go and say hacking tools. And you will get hacking tools. So it's risky. It's a very, we're in a very challenging position again. Hussam, يعني, what steps would you take to reduce the impact of inevitable disasters?
I think before I answer, just I think the information security people working in information security, they're not as good as the insurance companies yet. The insurance companies they can sell you insurance, and all the senior managers will buy the insurance, right? They will buy the insurance and so on. They will not say, oh, but nothing happened in the 5 years, this year I will not insure. But when the information security people go to the management and they say, and of course, maybe I'm also to be blamed here because as a CIO, the information security will report to me. And because I see that there's value in investing in new innovative services, maybe we'll say, okay, but let's do this next year. So it's definitely now is buying or the trust of the senior management, as was mentioned, is very critical. And I think marketing this by giving examples of incidents and things like this. Because an insurance agent will definitely say, okay, nothing happened to you in the last 5 years, but now this means very high chance something will happen to you now, right? It's 5 years, no accidents. Now maybe it's coming, unless it's a memoryless kind of distribution. So how to be, or how to react to an attack, an inevitable attack. So I like the word inevitable because an attack will happen. We don't know when or how or who will do it, but we definitely have vulnerabilities that someone might use. These tools, script kiddies, and the problem is that they're no longer script kiddies only, but also there are organized hacking groups, like was mentioned in the previous session, hacktivism and so on. The only way to be prepared is to react is to be prepared by having a proper business continuity plan. I started by relating the business continuity and the risk management. And again, to do proper business continuity, you need to assess the risk, right? So risk management is part of that process itself. So be prepared, have a team, an incident response team ready, have them aware of their roles and responsibilities, have a proper communication plan like this. So when something happens, we know how to communicate this to our internal users, to the public, and so on. So be prepared. I think that's the most important thing. So why do we have the business continuity plan from the first place? It's to be able to do something like this, to react to the problems or the risks or the attacks that will happen. Being prepared it's easy to say it. It requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of work that maybe the people will not see the value immediately, right? It's like when you buy the insurance today, alhamdulillah, nothing happened for 1 year. Doesn't mean that you'll not buy it next year. No, you'll buy it. So you don't see the value, but you see the value when something happens. And this is, again, one of the problems I think with security is that you don't see immediate value back to the business. It's always an investment. But it's exactly the same thing with insurance. In insurance, you don't see the value, but if something happens, then you have the protection. So this is what I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you. To utilize our time much better, I'd like to open the floor for questions. If any of the audience would like to ask or has such inquiry or comment. Okay, please.
Question regarding the importance or the value of having a business continuity committee headed by the first or the second guy in the organization.
Novak or yes, would you like to answer?
Well, as you heard in my initial comments, I think the goal of the information security function is to partner with the business, and our responsibility is to present our specialization in such a way that the business feels helped, in the same way that brakes help a car go faster. And one of the top responsibilities of senior management is the going concern risks to the business. So with a bit of business sense in the information security function, you can say having a business continuity plan addresses the going concern risk to the business. And an accurate and complete picture of all of the threats that might threaten business continuity is going to raise the profile of that risk such that it should be an ongoing concern of senior management. Just as Dr. Hassan mentioned, business continuity is much more than disaster recovery. There are many aspects of the business that might not continue that wouldn't fall under the title of disaster. So our responsibility is a communication responsibility to make sure the importance of business continuity in the information security sense is seen as identical to the going concern risk in an enterprise risk sense.
Andreas, would you like to comment?
Just a small comment here. Usually, whenever, as maybe Mr. Hassan mentioned, that people, they were not noticing what we are doing till we are stopped about doing it. In such culture or in such environment or such profession, it needs to be supported by top management. Otherwise, it will not work. Business continuity, talking about business continuity, you're talking about almost doubling the investment. Right? And if it's not sponsored by someone who believes in it in the highest management, it will not work.
So, yeah, the information security topic could be like the legal topic. So it must report to the highest or the executive management. Again, it's part of the enforcement, it's part of the support, and they are the decision makers. And if we understand correctly the information security, we realize that we always focus on confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And this is actually what most business departments face issues with when they try to implement their strategic projects. They have either their data not available, or either not accurate, or they cannot maintain the confidentiality of it. And up to some point, if we, from my experience, if we as security officers or business continuity officers report to a department manager, not to the senior or CEOs, then the manager himself will start, unfortunately, hiding the dust under the carpet. So either by purpose or impurpose, it's better always to report to the executive, and then they are the decision makers, and then they are the ones who accept the risk. Any other questions? Yeah, please. It will come.
Assalamu alaikum. From risk management point of view, you mentioned certain methodology in order to score a risk. So I'm just interested from your experience or from your point of view, how would you rate a risk in order to discuss it with someone to say whether it's legitimate or not? Especially the internal and external auditors. Sometimes we face challenging discussions with them. They rate some risk high, which in our opinion sometimes they're not even relative. So I'm just interested to know if there is a certain methodology we can benefit from in order to score some risks.
No, the methodology is actually not written on stone, or the risk management policy is not written on stone. So there isn't any fixed methodology that you should, or formula you should use. So the risk assessment should always be based on the business needs, and it will be based on the asset values and the threat vulnerability and so on. So for example, some formulas would calculate the CIA. They would calculate the sum of it and then get the asset value. Some would say, no, I will go with the highest value because I always plan on the worst case scenarios. So from my experience, I don't know actually a standard that will specifically tell you how will you risk assess your systems. Because some of them could be based on qualitative risk and some of them quantitative. So I don't believe that such auditor will have the right to say that your methodology was wrong. if you were following the policies and it was approved by the executive management. Nawak, would you comment?
Yes, so the information security forum actually has a methodology for risk analysis that involves a bit of specific calculation. So first of all, we define likelihood as the product of threat strength or threat prevalence and vulnerability. If you have high threat and high vulnerability, then you have a high likelihood of a successful threat event. And then we take the likelihood measure and the business impact measure, which, again, you've determined in collaboration with business management, and the product of likelihood and business impact together gives you information risk. So with a defined methodology that has numerical measures, we found that external and internal auditors at least respected a systematic methodology as being followed. And they might dispute certain calculations, but the element of individual judgment is somewhat removed because you have calculations that you're following. And also, again, I'll always stress having participation of the business to validate and sign off on these measures and say, yes, we accept these calculations. This helps provide a measure of objectivity because it's not just coming out of the silo of information security expertise, but the business is saying, yes, you've educated me on this. I see how these business impacts are connected to these particular threats, and this results in a risk to our information assets.
This is one example. I think I was referring to the IRAM of ISF, is it? Or
Yes, this is our IRAM methodology.
yeah, this is one methodology. There is another methodology which is also considering the quantitative approach, which is the fair factor analysis and information risks. But as Mr. Fahad mentioned, the best approach for you is whatever you are developing suiting your business. Because you understand the business, you understand your environment, you understand what is risky for your business, what is not. This is one point. And I think what you are referring to, whenever you are receiving an audit report and they are talking about, let's say that HTTP only flag and they are rated as a high, or something very simple, silly things, you are saying it is that is why it's rated as high. The only solution for such thing is to challenge them by the policy itself. Usually for any enterprise, mature enterprise, they will have a risk level talking about how much the value of loss that if you are rating, for example, high, how much value of loss that you are expecting. Usually if talking about in a high, you are talking about millions. You can't just argue them that if I put such vulnerability in this level, this means that I will be losing 100 million. They will answer no. This is a kind way of developing or arguing with the audit. The point is, also there is another point here. Usually they are reporting vulnerabilities as a risk, which is misleading. You need to report, if you want to report, either report it as a risk or talk about vulnerabilities. Don't mix things. And this is, I saw it a lot. They are mixing vulnerabilities with risks. So,
Thank you. Any other questions? So, I could share one of my experience, honestly. Like, policies, again, are not written on stone. So don't actually apply what's written. Be very flexible with the business need. For example, in the healthcare here in King Fahd Medical City, I had a system that wants to go to production, and it was about a doctor wants to be able to access the newly born infants, the babies, and he wants to check the medical report of them, and subhanAllah, he can decide within 48 hours if this baby will go blind or not. And if this baby will go blind, he can provide as well the medication. So they came to me, they said that this is an urgent system, and I said, okay, we want to do a risk assessment. And then when we did the risk assessment, we noticed that no security controls were on it. The system was not integrated with Active Directory, patches were not updated, it was a challenge for me. If I say no, then babies could go blind within 48 hours. And again, so I measured the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and I realized that they care so much about integrity and availability. So what did I do? At that stage, I wasn't able to follow our policies. So we implemented, the team and I implemented compensating controls to reduce the risk. So we only created one account for the doctor, and we made him put a very strong password, and we gave him an awareness session. We updated the batches, we did the penetration testing, and we fixed some stuff, and then we reached to a comfort zone saying that, wow, now the system can go up. So again, it's all about risk management. Policies are not written on stone. You can always make them written based on your business need and best practices and international standards and so on. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for this very fruitful discussion. Thank you my respective colleagues and speakers. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Fahad, and your honored panel members for very insightful discussion on business risk management and business continuity.